Welcome back to Headlines. I'm Wes Austin, and these are today's top stories. First, California Governor Gavin Newsom vetoed a wildfire prevention bill because it was too expensive, even though it was a fraction of what he's spending on gerrymandering. He said that California already has a fire mitigation strategy. Pray for rain. Then, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson compared Black Americans to people with disabilities during a Supreme Court hearing. This is the same justice who couldn't define woman because she's not a biologist. Now she's redefining disabled. Thank you, Joe Biden. Next, Nancy Pelosi went off on a reporter who asked why she refused the National Guard on January 6th. A reporter doing her job is not serious journalism, according to Nancy. But ripping up the State of the Union on live TV was totally normal and professional. The rules are very clear, folks. And finally, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz's new driver's license law apparently lets illegal immigrants vote. Democrats keep saying that no one is above the law. Apparently that includes everyone except the people who aren't supposed to be here. All right, and then onto the comment section on the segment we did about Nancy Pelosi saying that she invented the Drain the Swamp slogan. Who actually said that first? Then on the segment we did about Cheryl Hines going on The View, the Coven, as I like to call it. Whoopi was telling her that her husband wasn't a doctor, but didn't Whoopi say something odd about Jill Biden that shows that Whoopi should never give someone advice about anything medical related? So we'll look at that. Okay, let's dive in. California Governor Gavin Newsom vetoed a bill that would have required the state to develop a wildfire mitigation strategy. He's against fighting fires, but somehow still pro-gaslighting. Newsom vetoed the bill, SB 326, because of its cost of tens of millions of dollars, even though he's spending $250 million for a ballot measure to overturn California's Independent Redistricting Commission so that they can do some gerrymandering. Newsom's message is clear. Your house might burn down, but at least Maxine Waters' district will stay safe. Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson seemed to refer to Black Americans as disabled during a hearing. And the award for most uncomfortable moment in legal history goes to Ketanji. Lifetime appointment, folks. Lifetime. The case asks whether Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act is unconstitutional, and specifically whether Louisiana's congressional map, which includes 2 majority Black districts, violates the 15th Amendment and the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment.
Congress passed the Americans with Disabilities Act against the backdrop of a world that was generally not accessible to people with disabilities. And so it was discriminatory in effect because these folks were not able to access these buildings. I guess I don't understand why that's not what's happening here. The idea in Section 2 is that we are responding to current day manifestations of past and present decisions that disadvantage minorities and make it so that they don't have equal access to the voting system. Right? They're disabled. In fact, we use the word disable in Milligan.
And that concludes today's lesson on how not to explain voting rights. Just outside the Capitol, a reporter asked Nancy Pelosi about why she refused the National Guard on January 6th, and Nancy's Merlot meter redlined.
That day, why did you refuse the National Guard on January 6th?
Shut up. I did not refuse the National Guard. The president didn't send it. Why are you coming here with Republican talking points as if you're a serious journalist?
The American people want to know. We still have questions. Thank you.
We have video footage of Pelosi saying that she was responsible. Now she says it's Trump's fault. The only thing that flips faster than Nancy's story is her husband's car. I also wanted to quickly point out, I think that is the same reporter who got Maxine Waters to melt down on those same steps about health care for illegal immigrants, where Maxine Waters said, stop that, stop that. I think that's the same reporter, so well done. It looks like Tim Walz made it so that illegal immigrants can vote in elections. What? I thought they said that couldn't happen. In 2023, Wall signed a bill into law that permits illegals to receive a driver's license, and it's estimated that about 81,000 people are living in Minnesota illegally. In a recent Minnesota House meeting, it was confirmed that they can use these licenses to vote without needing proof of citizenship.
But if they walk in to vote with their driver's license, does that make them all of a sudden now okay?
Mr. Linnell.
Madam Chair, so the designation on the roster for someone whose registration had been incomplete, if they present the election judge with that acceptable identification document, that would clear the challenge from the roster and they would be permitted to cast a ballot.
Minnesota's new slogan, Land of 10,000 Lakes and 81,000 New Democrats. And now onto the comment section. So the first segment we're looking at is the Nancy Pelosi segment, where she said that she came up with drain the swamp and that President Trump stole it from her. Okay, so we have this comment from Mark196076. Her new slogan is drain the bottle. We have this one from Note Beat. Her saying that is like a skunk saying, "What's that smell? You smell it too?" You know, that when I read that one, I did kind of wonder if that ever happened to Joe Biden, where he, you know, because he probably couldn't control his bowels that well. So I wondered if he ever accidentally had a BM and didn't know, but he could smell something, so he would lean to somebody next to him and say, "Can you smell that? What's that?" You know, I just wondered. And what are they going to say? They're not going to say like, President Biden, that was you. They're going to probably say, "I don't know what that is." And there's no reason why the rest of the room is already cleared out. Anyway, so, okay, sorry, didn't mean to get up on that. Okay, this is from Monica Clark, 9581. She said there really wasn't a swamp to drain, then why did she come up with the slogan? So, and a number of people actually caught on to this. I don't know if you caught on to this when she said this, but she said, "I came up with drain the swamp." And then within that same sentence or two, she said, "But there wasn't really a swamp." Nancy, you've got to pick a side. You've got to pick a side. Either there is a swamp or there isn't a swamp. But she's like, "No, I'm Nancy. I'm Nancy. I can do both. Look at my hands." Anyway, it was funny. Okay, so then who came up with drain the swamp? Really, like who's the first in the political context to use it? And have you all make your guesses? Okay, and the saying actually has been around for over 100 years. We're not going to go back to the first use in 1903 or something. We're just going to go back within our lifetimes of politicians who've used it. And my research said it was actually President Ronald Reagan. And Steve actually noted this in his note, Steve C. 3526. Actually, I think Trump got the expression from Ronald Reagan, who said it in 1983. And I did look this up, and it looks like it was in 1982, if this is accurate, that the website I pulled up, remarks to the Reagan administration executive forum. So here's a couple of the paragraphs that I thought were good to just, because I think they could probably equally apply today, even though Reagan said this, way back in 82. So here's where he first, I think, used this slogan. And I'll go to the bottom part of that first paragraph. "When you're up to your armpits in alligators, it's sometimes hard to remember that your original intention was to drain the swamp. That's not why you're here and I'm here. We're here to cut back on waste and mismanagement, to eliminate unnecessary restrictive regulations that make it harder for the American economy to compete and harder for American workers to find jobs, to drain the swamp of overtaxation, overregulation, and runaway inflation that has dangerously eroded our free way of life." So that, I think, is the first time it was used in our lifetimes in politics. But please, in the comments, but you don't need to, I know it goes back to like the beginning of 1900s, but anyway, anyone else who thinks they have a politician earlier than that, not going crazy, let me know in the comments. Okay, on the segment about Cheryl Hines going on The View and getting her face ripped off by Sunny Hostin and Whoopi Goldberg, and I'm sure the rest of them too. So let's see, we have this comment. Actually, okay, these two comments kind of go together to point out what I talked about at the first of the opening of the show, which was Whoopi Goldberg saying something kind of that shows she has no business being a judge of who's a medical doctor and who isn't a medical doctor and who should say anything. So let's look at these two comments. One from CNC 295. Didn't Whoopi Goldberg want Joe Biden's wife, Jill Biden, to be in charge of the CDC or the health department? So we're going to answer that question. And then this from Tom Cass 66. Whoopi actually thought that Jill Biden was a medical doctor because she had a doctorate degree. Jill has a doctoral degree in education, I believe. So let's look at what really happened with Whoopi. This is from The Hill in 2020. Whoopi accidentally pitches Jill Biden as Surgeon General. So in a slip-up on The View Wednesday, Whoopi Goldberg suggested Jill Biden, who has a doctorate in education, be appointed Surgeon General if her husband wins the 2020 presidential election, calling her a hell of a doctor. Now, when she calls her a hell of a doctor and suggests she be the Surgeon General, that is because she thinks she's a medical doctor. So the fact that Whoopi had said that, she shouldn't be giving Cheryl Hines crap about, your husband isn't a medical doctor, right? Yeah, I kind of know what he is and what he isn't, but since you thought Jill Biden was a medical doctor, maybe just zip it, Whoopi. Anyway, but that is a great point, but it's not going to stop Whoopi from talking. Thanks for watching Headlines. I'm Wes Austin. Good night.